Okay.
Awesome. Well, thanks for joining us, everyone. Kira is a BCBAD and a licensed behavior analyst in Massachusetts and Maryland. She earned her BCBA, her PhD in behavior analysis from Western New England University in 2015 under the guidance of some of our greats, including Greg Hanley, Bill Ahern, Rachel Thompson, and Dave Palmer. She started her career as a behavior analyst almost 20 years ago at the New England Center for Children in Massachusetts, and has since worked in many different settings as a direct care staff, clinician, researcher, supervisor, director, consultant, and professor. Currently, she runs her own consulting company, More Behavior Consulting, where she specializes in treating sleep problems and severe challenging behavior. And she also teaches in several behavior analysis master's programs. We have Kira on our partners page on our website, so we're excited to have invited her here to do a hangout with everyone and share some tips and guidance on successful outcomes for sleep treatment. So thanks for coming and joining us, and the floor is yours.
Well, thank you for having me. I am going to be doing double duty here in the beginning, letting people in that are coming in a little bit late. So if my focus goes elsewhere for a second, I'm just letting people in. Yeah, so I've been every time I have to write a bio or hear a bio, it is shocking to me that I've been in this field as long as I have, because I'm like, I can't be that old yet, right? There's no way I've been doing this for 20 years. I always tell my students when I say I've been in the field for 20 years that I started when I was 7. But I have been doing this for quite a long time. And if you couldn't tell by my bio, I have a little bit of commitment phobia and I like to do a lot of different things. So I've worked in a lot of different capacities in pretty much every setting that you could work in as a behavior analyst. I've done clinic-based, I've done residential, I've done home-based, I've done teleconsulting, I've done school-based. And I have worked with people from the ages of 3 all the way up to adults, and in various different capacities in a lot of different jobs. I like to keep busy and I like to be doing a lot of different things. My most recent endeavor is I'm about to head up to Washington later this week to get my dog trainer certification, because why not add another thing to the list? I have varied interests in behavior analysis. But I always most enjoy talking about sleep and getting more behavior analysts involved in doing sleep work. I think it's something that is really, really important to every living person. And I'm finding out to dogs as well. I've already had people approach me and ask me if the sleep work that I do with humans could be applied to dogs, which I don't know yet, but I suspect maybe. I'm not quite there yet in figuring that all out. But I love talking with people about sleep, and I get inquiries pretty regularly from behavior analysts asking, how do I get to learn more about sleep? How do I become an expert in sleep? How do I start treating sleep problems? So I'm hoping that I can give you all a good intro into that today, and kind of where do you go to get your feet wet, and what are the basic things that we're doing when we're assessing and treating sleep problems. I was lucky enough to learn from the man himself, Greg Hanley. I remember back in my doctoral program, I was taking a class with him on severe problem behavior. And week 1, when he handed out the syllabus, back then they used to actually hand you a paper syllabus. I was flipping through it and I noticed that there was a week on sleep problems. And I thought, that's kind of odd. This class is on severe behavior problems and we have a week on sleep. Is sleep even behavior? Is that even something that we deal with as behavior analysts? And I was really excited to get to that week. And I remember thinking it had never occurred to me until I took that class that sleep problems were behavior problems and were something that we should even be thinking about or thinking about treating. And I myself had a long history of not sleep problems, but being a little bit obsessive about sleep and being really interested in sleep and having it be a really important thing for me. I'm one of those people that's like, if I'm out like at a social event, I'm checking my watch because like I gotta be home because my bedtime is coming up and I gotta do my bedtime routine, and like I need some time to snuggle with my dog before I go to bed for the night. And I've always just kind of been paranoid about getting enough sleep and getting good sleep. I also happen to be somebody that requires a lot of sleep. I definitely do my best on about 8.5 to 9 hours of sleep, which in the real world turns out is really hard to do as an adult. So I've always had an interest in sleep, but it never really occurred to me that it was something I could do as a behavior analyst. So I'm forever grateful to Greg Hanley for putting that out there for me and helping me realize that was something that I could be doing. And when I was lucky enough when I had Greg for that particular class is the time that they were developing the sleep assessment and treatment tool. Sandy Jin was one of his doctoral students at the time, and they were working really hard on that study and on the sleep assessment and treatment tool. So I got to kind of test that out with a few of my own clients and have their expert guidance as I went through that process. And then as I kind of took off running, because as soon as I started treating sleep problems, I was like, oh, this is what I want to be doing. This is so reinforcing for me as a clinician, because it works really well and it works really fast. And it's rare that you get that in behavior analysis, right? We all work with difficult problems and you don't always see results really quickly. And so for me as a behavior analyst to have a problem that I could tackle and see results in real time really fast and have those results really impact somebody's life, that was like, that's my drug as a behavior analyst. So I knew right away, this is what I want to do. I want to do more of this. And I was lucky enough to have Greg and Sandy guide me through the beginning parts of that process and really help me figure out how to do it and do it well. So today, a couple of main objectives that I won't read to you because I'm sure you can all read yourself. But before we get started, I want to make sure that everybody knows that BCBA CEUs are available for this talk if you want them. If you would like to earn 1.5 CEUs, you just need to be here for the entire talk. And then there are going to be a couple of keywords that appear throughout the talk. They'll be on their own slide. I'll tell you this is one of the keywords. The keyword will also be written on the screen, so they'll be hard to miss. If you want CEUs, just make sure you write all of those down. And then at the end of the talk, we will talk about how to actually submit those to me and how to get your CEUs. It is going to be $15 for the 1.5 CEUs if you do want them, but optional if you want them. Just write down those keywords as we go. And then also I wanted to know as we're getting going, I want to keep this interactive, but I also want to cover a decent amount of material. So I will make sure we reserve some time at the end for questions. If you have questions as we're going, just jot them down and hang on to them till the end. I tend to not really monitor the chat unless I specifically ask a question on the chat and open it up, because otherwise I get really distracted by all the little things going on and I'll just lose my train of thought. So if you do have questions, hang on to them till the end. I'll make sure that we save some time for them at the end. Before we get started too, I wanted to ask you all, and this is one time that I will be looking at the chat, what population do you all work with? So just shoot me a note in the chat with diagnoses and age range so that I have an idea of who you all work with, what you all do. Oh, we got a lot of early intervention folks in here. Okay. Looks like we've got all over the map here. We got early intervention, birth, all the way up through adults. A lot of people saying primarily ASD. Okay, anybody work with a population primarily not ASD? All diagnoses. Okay. All right, good. That helps me know who I'm talking to and kind of how to tailor what we're talking about today. And it's good we've got a wide variety here because sleep problems are really prevalent in children, whether they're typically developing or on the autism spectrum. And same thing goes for adults. So sleep problems happen all across the board for pretty much every population. Unfortunately, sleep problems, just like many other behavior problems, don't tend to just go away on their own, especially not in individuals with autism or other intellectual disabilities. They tend to require targeted treatment to actually fix them. So I think there's this kind of false impression that sometimes when kids have sleep problems, like just ride it out, it'll go away, they'll grow out of it. And sometimes that is the case in typically developing children. In children on the autism spectrum, that is often not the case. They usually require some targeted treatment to fix sleep problems. And in my experience, a lot of parents of children with autism think that poor sleep is just part of the diagnosis. And they think that that kind of just comes with the territory, and that if they have a child with autism, they just aren't going to be a good sleeper. And that's not true. And that's something that we should be on the lookout for if we're working with really anybody in the neurodivergent community, that just because you are neurodivergent doesn't mean you have to suffer through sleep problems. They are problems across the board. They are more prevalent in those populations, but we don't have any evidence that they are because of those diagnoses. So we know there are higher rates of sleep problems in children with autism compared to typically developing children the same age, but we don't know for sure if those are inherent differences or if they are caused by poor sleep, which is a behavior problem and is amenable to treatment. So it's kind of one of those chicken and egg scenarios where I think a lot of people assume autism causes sleep problems. And I think it's probably actually not the case at all. It's just that kids with autism often need extra targeted treatment to learn a lot of different behaviors, and healthy sleep habits and good sleep hygiene are just one of those things. So just like learning any other skills, children with autism often need more explicit instruction and they need more practice to learn healthy sleep habits. It's not that there is something necessarily different about them or different about their brains where they're not going to be able to sleep. It's just that we need to take a little extra time to teach them healthy sleep habits. So everything that we're going to talk about today is applicable to all individuals, whether they're typically developing or whether they're neurodivergent, whether they're adults, whether they're children. The only population that I don't work with is birth to 2. And not because the things that I'm talking about don't work with that population, just because that population is already pretty saturated for the market for sleep problems. There's a lot of baby sleep specialists, so there's really no need for me in that arena. It's the 2 and up age groups that there really aren't a lot of people working on sleep problems, and especially in the neurodivergent space, that there's not a lot of people specializing in that. So everything we're going to talk about today really applies to any sleep problem, whether it's your own or your children's or your clients'. So we'll kind of paint with broad strokes today. So first, and most importantly, we got to talk about the ABCs. And to successfully treat sleep problems, first, we have to understand how to assess sleep as behavior. There is a really great article by Blampede and France in JABA from 1993 that does an excellent job describing how to look at sleep as behavior. So I would highly recommend that article if you're interested in sleep. But the authors talk about how sleep is not behavior. Sleep is what they refer to as a biobehavioral state. Because sleep doesn't really neatly fall into either operant or respondent behavior. Like sleep isn't a reflex. There's not some stimulus you can present that makes somebody fall asleep. It's not operant in the sense that we can't really reinforce it and get more of it. So we call it a biobehavioral state. And they put it in the same category as things like digestion or things like pregnancy. They're kind of like behavior, but they aren't really, right? They don't really neatly fall into either of our categories of behavior. So that's important because when we're treating sleep problems, sleep in and of itself is not our target behavior because it's not behavior. So that's not really the thing that we're trying to change. Instead, we focus on the chain of behavior that leads up to what the authors refer to as behavioral quietude, which I really like that phrase. But that's basically the period of time where you stop doing things and settle down right before falling asleep. So whenever we're treating sleep problems, that's our target. We're looking at that chain of behavior that leads up to behavioral quietude and falling asleep. And that's what we are focused on. So I generally just refer to that as falling asleep as our target behavior. And a good sleeper should generally fall asleep within 10 to 15 minutes of getting into bed and then stay asleep throughout the night and sleep for an age-appropriate duration. So that's always what we're working towards in sleep treatment. But again, we're focused on falling asleep rather than sleep itself, because sleep itself isn't really behavior. And just like with any other behavior problems that we might be working on, in order to successfully change our target behavior of falling asleep and help people with sleep problems, we have to look at the contingencies that are involved. And we have to assess all the aspects of the 4-term contingency. And the cool thing about working with sleep problems is that half that work is kind of already done for us because we already know that our target behavior here, our B, is falling asleep. And the reinforcer for falling asleep is sleep. So that's where sleep comes into this. It's here, it's our reinforcer. So we have our behavior is falling asleep, our reinforcer is getting sleep. So in order to improve sleep, we really have to focus a lot of our efforts here on the antecedent part. And that's the SDs that function as signals for falling asleep and the establishing operations that make sleep a valuable reinforcer. Okay, so just like any other behavior problems, we're just looking at the ABCs. But we also have to keep in mind the flip side of the equation, which is interfering behavior that gets in the way of falling asleep quickly. So we also have to think about what are the SDs for those behaviors, what are the MOs for those behaviors, what are the reinforcers for those behaviors. So even though we have half the equation already figured out when we're actually talking about our target behavior of falling asleep, there's still a lot of variables at play here. There's still a lot of things that we need to think about when we're talking about sleep problems, but they're all environmental, just like any other behavior problem. We just have to look at what are the antecedents, what are the consequences, what are the behaviors that we're dealing with here. Okay, this is our first code word if you are wanting CEUs, and the code word is Frida. That's my dog. Her name is Frida Paulo. That's her full name. She is a rescue from Mexico. So if you are wanting CEUs today, make sure you write that code word down. It is Frida, Frida. Okay, so when we are talking about sleep problems, there's a lot of different topographies of sleep problems that people can have. So things like trouble falling asleep, trouble staying asleep, waking up too early, refusing to sleep in their own bed, if we're talking about often children, having tantrums at bedtime, having nightmares, having bedtime anxiety, night terrors, bedwetting. But regardless of what the sleep problems look like, they almost always have the same causes, and most of them have the same solutions. So just like when we're treating any other challenging behavior, the topography isn't really the important part. It's the function. So we fix sleep problems by fixing the causes, which are usually environmental. So instead of talking about specific sleep problems or specific topographies, we're going to talk about the 4 main environmental causes of most sleep problems, and then some of the things that we do to fix those problems. And there's 4 general things that tend to cause most sleep problems. The first is that sleep isn't valuable at bedtime. So that's an MO problem. It means sleep is not a valuable reinforcer when it should be. The second one is when we don't have good signals or SDs in place for sleep. So in order for the behavior of falling asleep to happen quickly, we have to have good discriminative stimuli in place that set the occasion for falling asleep. And we also have to make sure that there are not SDs present that signal other competing behavior might get reinforced. For adults, the biggest SD for interfering problem behavior at night is this thing right here, right? This signals a whole lot of behavior with a whole lot of reinforcers. So if you're going to bed with this in your hand, that might be a problem. Our number 3 problem is also an SD problem, and that's sleep dependencies. So we have to make sure that the SDs that set the occasion for sleep are appropriate and that they are available all night. And if they aren't, then we might have a problem with duration of sleep. And then last but not least, we have to consider competing behavior. So that's sometimes our biggest problem when it comes to poor sleep habits. If there's other behavior available to engage in, and those behaviors are being reinforced, then sleep isn't going to happen. We're going to have people deferring to other behaviors at bedtime. So we have to remember that in addition to promoting healthy sleep habits, we might also have to extinguish some interfering behavior at bedtime. So we're going to go through each of those 4 causes of sleep problems really briefly and talk about what are some of the common things that we do as behavior analysts to fix them. And then we're going to talk a little bit about, okay, what do we do with this information? How do we actually get into treating sleep problems? One of the most common problems that I see across the board, both for children and adults, is not being tired at bedtime. Hillary, I think this might be exactly what you just mentioned before. This is an MO problem. This means sleep is not a valuable reinforcer at the right time. And one of the best things that we can do for sleep, both for ourselves and for children, is to only get in bed when we are tired, when we feel like sleep is going to be a valuable reinforcer. We want to practice falling asleep quickly, and that, of course, only happens when you're tired. Unless you're me, I can literally lay down in my bed at any time of the day or night and fall asleep pretty much immediately, even if I don't feel tired. The other day, I chugged a very big cup of coffee because I was actually feeling kind of tired, and I was like, I got a lot of work to get done. Chugged coffee, and then I was like, I'm going to just lay down and take a break for just a second. I'm not going to go to sleep because I just chugged coffee. I'm not really that tired. I'm just going to lay down and pet my dog for a second. And then an hour later, I woke up and was like, what just happened? Where am I? But so for me, sleep is pretty much always a reinforcer, but that's not the case for everybody. But how do we make sure that somebody is tired at bedtime? How do we make sure sleep is a valuable reinforcer at the right time? 2 main things that we pay attention to. One is how much sleep is the person getting right now? And 2 is what is the sleep schedule that they're on? As far as the amount of sleep goes, this chart here is really helpful. This actually comes from the Ferber book, which a lot of you might be familiar with that name, the Ferber method of treating sleep problems. This is actually my favorite sleep chart of all of the ones that are out there. You might, I think if you Google Ferber chart for sleep hours, you'll find a copy of this. But you can also just Google sleep hours by age, and you should come up with a whole bunch of different charts that should have roughly the same numbers. This one has more detail than any of them. This is based on science. Okay, this is figured out in a lab how much sleep people need. And there is a very precise amount per age, and it doesn't deviate a whole lot. For adults 18 and up, the amount of sleep that adults need is between 7 and 9 hours. So there is a little bit of variability there. Some adults can do just fine on 7 hours a night, and they are 100% healthy. They're functioning at their best. If we took them in a lab and we had them sleep 7 hours a night versus 8 hours, they'd do just as fine on all the tests that we do for cognitive ability and reaction time and memory and all those things. They do just as well at 7 hours. Other people like me are more towards the 9 hours. So if I'm sleeping, I've actually, I've done a little bit of experimentation on myself, and I found that my ideal amount is 8 hours and 37 minutes. If I'm sleeping less than that, I'm not at my best. That's when I start getting sick. That's when I start feeling more irritable. I have a harder time remembering things. I have a harder time putting sentences together. My reaction time's not as good. When I go to the gym, I can't run as fast. I can't lift as much. But all adults fall somewhere in that 7 to 9. Unless you are one of the extremely lucky few that has a special genetic mutation that means you do not need 7 to 9 hours, you only need 6 to 7 hours. And there is a very, very small subset of people that have this genetic mutation that you can actually test for. And if you're sitting there thinking, oh, I might have that, I only sleep 6 hours a night and I'm doing great, it is very unlikely that you are one of those people. The statistics for that are something like you're like 1,000,000 times more likely to get struck by lightning than you are to have that gene that makes you need less sleep. So if you're sitting there being like, I think I have that, you probably unfortunately don't. You're probably not getting enough sleep. But these are exactly how much people need at different ages. So if you have a parent saying like, oh, my 6-year-old only sleep 7 hours a night and they're fine. Not true. If they are 6 years old, scientifically and biologically, they need 10 3/4 hours a night. Now, there's a little bit of variability. For kids, I usually say it's about a half hour either way. So any 6-year-old that I'm working with, no matter what their parents tell me, they need between 10 1/4 and 11 1/2 hours of sleep a night. No questions asked. That's how much they need. So this is the first thing that you need to know is how much sleep does the person actually need? Once you know the right amount of sleep, the next important step is set a schedule and stick to it. So one of the absolute best things that you can do for sleep for anyone is stick to the same schedule every night. That means go to bed at the same time every night, wake up at the same time every morning. Yes, on weekends and vacations too. Unfortunately, people always hate me when I tell them that, but that is the most important thing that you can do for sleep is stick to a consistent schedule, especially for children. And for children, there are no excuses. It should be relatively easy for kids to be on a consistent schedule. I know that's not always the case for adults. People have variable work schedules. Sometimes people do shift work. Sometimes schedules just don't allow it, but most likely your child is not doing shift work, I hope. They're hopefully not pulling all-nighters doing schoolwork. So it should be easy for most school-age kids to be on a consistent schedule, but that is really, really, really important. Next thing is if a person normally falls asleep a lot later than they should, which is our most common topography of behavior when sleep isn't valuable at bedtime, the person's going to sleep really late. We can't just say, okay, this is your sleep schedule. Now let's do it. Let's put you on that schedule. It doesn't really work like that. So one treatment that can be really helpful is called bedtime fading, which you can read about in a really great article by Piazza and Fisher from 1991. But basically what you do is you start collecting some data on when the person is currently falling asleep. And then I usually take about a week's worth of data. And then when you're ready to start bedtime fading, you start with a bedtime of 30 to 60 minutes later than their current average time that they fall asleep. Okay, so if right now, let's say right now you are struggling to fall asleep on time and you want your bedtime to be 10 p.m. and you take some data on your sleep and you take some data for a week and you find out the average time that you are falling asleep is 11 p.m. When we start bedtime fading, what we would do is say, okay, night number 1, your bedtime is actually going to be midnight. Okay, so you're falling asleep on average at 11. You want your bedtime to be 10, but we're actually going to start with a bedtime at midnight because that increases the value of sleep as a reinforcer. We make sleep a valuable reinforcer by making you stay up later, and we teach you to fall asleep quickly. So you practice falling asleep quickly. So from there, then you slowly move your bedtime earlier, usually just in 15-minute increments. We never go more than 15 minutes at a time. And we only do it when you have successfully fallen asleep within 15 minutes of getting into bed for 2 nights in a row. Okay, so let's say we put you to bed at midnight on night number 1. You fall asleep before 12:15. Great, that's a successful night. We do another midnight bedtime on night 2. If you fall asleep again before 12:15, we go, great, 2 successes in a row. Let's move you back to 11:45 for bedtime. If you have 2 successes there, then we move you back to 11:30, and we just slowly walk it back by 15 minutes until we get you at your correct bedtime of 10 p.m. Now, usually what I do when I do bedtime fading is I keep a consistent wake up time. Okay, so if you're an adult and you're shooting for a 10 p.m. bedtime, let's say your wake up time is going to be 6 a.m. because you need 8 hours of sleep. Even when we start bedtime fading and we put you to bed at midnight the first couple nights, I'm still going to have you wake up at 6 a.m. because now we are also creating a state of sleep deprivation. So that also increases the motivation for sleep. It increases the value of sleep as a reinforcer. So that should help solve that problem. So essentially, we want to make sure we have a good EO in place at bedtime so that sleep is going to be a really valuable reinforcer. And that's a good start in any sleep treatment. Okay, this is our second code word if you are wanting CEUs, and it is Nero, N-E-R-O. That is my rescue bunny, and yes, he really does sleep like that. He's not dead. I find him like that at least once a day. I think that he gives me a heart attack because he's really old. He's 11 years old, and he sleeps like that, or sometimes he sleeps completely belly up, and I'll walk in and be like, oh my gosh, he's just fine. So code word number 2 is Nero. Next big problem we see at bedtime is a lack of signals or SDs for sleep and the presence of signals or SDs for other interfering behavior. And that's often a result of chaos or unpredictability before bed, which makes it really hard for kids to settle down and get to sleep. Same for adults. And one of the easiest and most important things that you can do to help clients fall asleep faster and get a better night's sleep is to stick to a consistent pre-bedtime routine. So this is an easy one to put in place for just about anybody, but basically this sets up a chain of behavior that predictably leads to falling asleep. So it's just like any other behavior chain that we teach, and having a consistent bedtime routine before bed, that can do a couple of things to help with sleep. First, it can help kids wind down and transition smoothly into bedtime because they know exactly what the expectations are. They know what's happening. They know what's coming up. And then also, one of the most important things about having a regular bedtime routine before bed is that it actually helps your body physically prepare to settle down and go to sleep. So before we fall asleep, our body releases certain hormones like melatonin that tell us that it's nighttime. They tell us that we should start getting sleepy. They make us sleepy. And doing the same things before bed every night, that actually helps jumpstart that process in your body. And that helps that melatonin start flowing. That helps you start getting sleepy. So that's a little SD trick that we use. Bedtime routines, there is no like set way that they have to look. You can have a written routine. You can have something like this here where it's a little checkbox. You can have a sticker chart. You can have a star chart. You can have it with points and reinforcers. You can get as fancy as you want, but it also doesn't have to be fancy at all. You can have families just decide on what are the events that need to happen at night. What are those going to go in, and what's that going to look like that works for them? So there's no hard and fast rules when it comes to bedtime routine and how it should go, or like if it should be written or if there should be reinforcers, whatever works for the family. And same for adults, important for adults to have a little bedtime routine, and it doesn't have to be a fancy thing. I have a bedtime routine every night where I let my dog out to go potty, and then I go to the bathroom, and then I wash my hands, I brush my teeth, I get a cookie for my dog. I have her go into her bed. She gets her bedtime cookie. I unmake my bed. I put my phone away for the night, turn on my white noise, and I go to sleep. Now, I don't have that all written down. I don't give myself any stickers, but I follow the same order of events every night. And by the time I get into bed and lay my head down, I am already ready to fall asleep because my body knows what's coming, knows what to expect, and it's already prepared and ready. There's a couple of rules that I tell people to try to stick to when you're making a bedtime routine for anybody. One is in the 45 minutes or so before bed, try to avoid bright lights, and that includes electronics. So for about 45 minutes before bed, try to move away from electronics. So no more TV, no more staring at your phone and scrolling through TikTok or Facebook or Instagram or whatever the kids are using these days. I can't keep up anymore. But switch over to quiet, relaxing activities. You might be going, oh my God, what would I do for 45 minutes without electronics? I could, like, if I can't be on social media and I can't be on Netflix, what the heck am I going to do for 45 minutes? One, you might find you end up having an earlier bedtime because you're not wasting your time doing those things. But you could be doing things like reading a book, writing in a journal, doing a puzzle, coloring, maybe some bedtime yoga, maybe some light chores, nothing that's gonna not like vigorously vacuuming carpets or anything, but like if you got some dishes to wash or like a counter to wipe down, those are things you can be doing before bed. For kids, it can be reading a book, it can be coloring, playing with toys, doing puzzles, whatever quiet activities you have at your disposal. Try to keep baths and showers about an hour before bed if possible, not right before bed. We don't want to increase people's body temperature right before bed because that actually can delay sleep a little bit. And keep heavy meals about an hour before bed as well. Be careful of things like chocolate or things that may have caffeine in them. And then, of course, try to limit fluids in the hour before bed, especially with young kids. So those are the only real kind of rules that I tell people they need to follow in a bedtime routine. But otherwise, bedtime routines can look however you want. Just do the same things in the same order every night, and that helps with sleep. Next one, another SD problem that I see pretty frequently is sleep dependencies. So sleep dependencies are SDs that occasion sleep, and they're anything that someone needs to have with them or around them to fall asleep. Sleep dependencies can be things like a pacifier, a blanket, a stuffed animal, a parent, a cell phone, music, noise, silence, a TV, a pet, you name it, I've seen it for sleep dependencies. And there are some sleep dependencies that are good because they can help us fall asleep fast and help us stay asleep. But there are a lot of sleep dependencies that are unhealthy. Even though they might help us fall asleep initially, they might cause problems later in the night with waking back up. So we want to try to make sure everybody has healthy sleep dependencies, and then we want to get rid of ones that are unhealthy. And we define healthy as anything that you can have with you for the entire night. It stays the same the entire night, and it is available every night. So those are the three things that we're looking for. It's with you the whole night, stays the same the whole night, it's available every night. So some examples might be a stuffed animal, that's a healthy sleep dependency, a blanket, a certain pillow, white noise. An unhealthy sleep dependency is anything that doesn't stay with you the whole time you're sleeping. It changes while you're sleeping, or it isn't available every night. So that could be things like a phone, a TV, a pet, another person, a parent. And the reason that we want things to stay the same all night and stay with you every night is because during our regular sleep cycles that we go through, we have something called micro awakenings. And that happens a few times a night, and that's a totally normal, healthy part of a sleep cycle. Basically, what happens is it's your brain kind of just turning on for a second and checking to make sure that everything's okay. Kind of a cool fail-safe that we have built into our brain, because it'd be kind of scary if we just went to sleep for 8 hours and we're totally like unconscious, right? That could be problematic. So we have these little micro awakenings where you can think of it as your brain just turns on for a second, assesses the environment really quickly to make sure you're okay. And if you're okay, you go right back to sleep. If you're a good, healthy sleeper, you won't even remember these. You might wake up and be like, yep, I just slept for 8 hours. Don't remember anything that happened. I feel great. If something in your environment changes between the time you fall asleep and the time you have a micro awakening, that sounds the alarm bells in your brain. Your brain goes, wake up, something's different. So if you are a little kid and you fall asleep with mom in your bed, rubbing your back and laying down with you, and then when you fall asleep, mom sneaks out, and then you wake up a few hours later, you have a little micro awakening where your brain's going, checking in, making sure everything's good here. Your brain goes, we're not good. We're not good. Mom's gone. Wake up and find mom. And that turns into a full-blown waking. So it's really important to think about what things a person's sleep is dependent on. And remember, those are like SDs. And we want to try to get rid of unhealthy sleep dependencies. And that can look different ways depending on what the problem is. Sometimes it might be we just go, okay, we got to go cold turkey and take that thing away. I had an adult client once that was falling asleep while reading her Kindle, and she was waking up probably 20 times a night, and she had gone to great lengths to rig up her Kindle right above her bed. She had it like hanging on some kind of a device, because every time she woke up, she needed to start reading her Kindle again to be able to fall asleep. So she had basically rigged her Kindle up above her head, so anytime she woke up, she could just hit it and start scrolling and reading again. So she had a sleep dependency on her Kindle. But because she'd wake up and the Kindle would have timed out and be off and she was no longer reading, it would sound the alarm bells every time, and she'd have to have a full-blown waking and read another chapter to fall back to sleep. So with that one, we went, okay, we just got to go cold turkey. We got to put the Kindle away. No more Kindle at bedtime. We're not having this be a sleep dependency anymore. With other things, we might not just rip the Band-Aid off. We might fade it out slowly. Parents in particular, that's a hard one to rip the Band-Aid off. For most kids, we can't just go, okay, mom and dad are leaving now, and they're not going to lay down with you anymore when you're used to that being a thing. So we usually do a more gradual approach with that, but we have to be really thoughtful about what things is a person sleep dependent on, and is that a healthy sleep dependency or not? If it's not, how can we get rid of it? And how can we replace it with more appropriate healthy sleep dependencies? Okay, code word number 3 is nap, N-A-P, nap. Something that my dog is a professional napper. Okay, and then our last big problem that we see at bedtime is competing activities. And what I mean by that is there are other fun or exciting things to do. So of course the person doesn't want to go to sleep. And having a bedtime routine and shutting all the fun activities down at least a half hour before bed, and then enforcing limits on those things, that can be a really helpful way to mitigate that problem. So that means if kids are getting ready for bed, there shouldn't be electronics involved anymore about a half hour before bed. I always tell parents, you should also do that in solidarity. If you're telling your kids, okay, electronics are over at 8 o'clock until they're in bed at 8:30, you should also put yours away from 8 o'clock till 8:30. You can always go back to them once the kids are in bed. Keeping things like toys out of the bedroom, making sure things are put away that are going to be tempting at bedtime. I had a client recently that the parents couldn't figure out why she was so tired all the time. She was falling asleep at school, and they said she goes to bed great, she goes down easy, not a problem. She's quiet in there. And then they said, but sometimes when we go to bed, when we walk down the hall, we notice her light's on. And so we just go and shut her light off and she doesn't wake up. And I asked them to start popping their head in or watching on a camera. They ended up rigging up a camera in her room and seeing what she was doing and how quickly she was falling asleep. Turned out that after they tucked her in and left the room and they went back downstairs, she was turning on her light and getting out her Babysitter's Club books. And she was reading for 2 or 3 hours before she was going to sleep at night. And they weren't noticing because she'd either have a light on like under the covers and be under the covers reading, or she'd turn the bedroom light on and they weren't noticing until they went up to bed a couple hours later. So she was missing 2 or 3 hours of sleep a night because she was reading books in her room. So part of her sleep treatment involved taking the books out of her room so that that wasn't a temptation anymore. One of the biggest competing activities we see at bedtime is kids wanting parent attention and repeatedly getting out of bed to try and chat or try and get mom and dad's attention, or asking for things. Suddenly they need all these things at bedtime. One thing that you can do to try and decrease that is make sure that they get access to that reinforcer earlier in the day. And that goes with anything that is interfering behavior at bedtime. Figure out what's the reinforcer, how can we give them access to that earlier in the day. And then one other strategy that I really like that can help with kids who make a lot of curtain calls where they're popping back out of the room at night is called the bedtime pass. And that was invented by a behavior analyst, one of our very own, Pat Fryman. And he's got a really good article about that. If you Google bedtime pass, there's a ton of info out there on it online. Essentially, what you would do with the bedtime pass system is you create these little passes. It can look like what's on the screen here. It can look like anything you want. It could be little tickets. But the kid gets a couple of bedtime passes at night and they are allowed to get out of bed as long as they have a pass with them, and they can redeem that pass for anything that they need. It has to be a reasonable request that can be completed quickly. So it could be something like they can come back out of their room with a pass in hand, hand it to their mom and say, I need you to come give me a hug, or I need you to get me a drink of water, or I need to go to the bathroom, or I need you to come read me a couple more pages from my book. And then the parent keeps the pass for the rest of the night. And once they're out of passes, they cannot get out of bed anymore. If they do get out of bed, they just get neutrally walked back to bed. And bonus, if they have any passes left in the morning, they can trade them in for some kind of special reinforcer. So there's kind of a little double whammy there. So we give them an appropriate way to get out of bed and get what they need. This might sound like a familiar system to all of you that are familiar with the PFA and SBT treatments. We give them an appropriate way to ask for the things that they need, but then we fade that down. So we might start with 5 bedtime passes a night, and when they're having success with that and keeping at least 1 until the morning, we fade it down. And the goal is to eventually get to just 1 per night. So they get 1 get out of jail free card if they need something, but they have to be really thoughtful about using it. So they've got to, if they're thinking like, I'd really like to get out of bed right now and see what my mom and dad are doing, but I only got this 1 bedtime pass. Do I want to use it to go ask for a drink of water, or do I want to hang on to it and potentially trade it in the morning for something cool, or keep it because, like, what if I have a bad dream, or like, what if the boogeyman shows up in the middle of the night? Like, I want to have this if I need it, right? So it teaches kids some kind of good skills of thinking about like making choices and deciding what they really need to do and what they really want, and delayed reinforcement skills as well. So those are some of the basic sleep problems that we focus on treating when we're doing behavioral sleep treatment, and some of the quick solutions. Obviously, we can't we can't get into too many of the details today. But I often get asked, how do I start doing this? How do I get started treating sleep problems, or what steps do I need to take before I do this with my own clients? And first and foremost, I usually start with a word of caution to BCBAs that are looking to do this as a full-time job. A lot of people do what I did, and they get really excited about sleep and they go, I want to do this. I want to make this my thing. And to that I say, great, but you should know that doing sleep full time is a terrible business model, as I have found out. So typically for me, if I take on a sleep case, I can do an entire sleep case from start to finish, and that includes assessment and treatment, in under 10 billable hours. I have a really high success rate. I've been doing sleep work for a long time. I've got it down to a pretty efficient process. But having an efficient process and a high success rate means that I go through a lot of work to onboard a new client. You all know how that goes, I'm sure. I might get 10 different phone calls from somebody before they decide if they want to commit. I have to spend all that time giving them all the details, getting them set up for billing, doing intake paperwork, setting up a file for them. And then after 10 billable hours, they are done forever. I almost never have repeat clients. And when I do have a former sleep client contact me because they're having sleep problems again, the first thing that I do is I ask, are you still following the plan? And I ask them, pull out the plan and read it again and make sure you're actually still following it, that you haven't deviated too far. And almost always people then email me back and go, oops, we're not doing X, Y, and Z anymore. And I go, okay, do that again. Do that sleep plan that I gave you that you spent that money on. And then inevitably a week or so later, I'll follow up and they'll go, yep, we're all good again. Problem's gone. That was silly. We should have just been following the plan. So basically you put in a lot of work into getting sleep clients for very little billable time and a lot of turnover, because if you do a good job, you shouldn't see them again. Every business person that I have ever talked to about this work and what I do has just laughed at me when I told them that this is what I do and this is what my business is built on. They're like, that's not a sustainable business. And I kind of agree. It is. So for me, it is my business, but it is only part of my business. I have to do other work as well to maintain my living. Otherwise, I would have to be constantly searching for new clients, and the turnover is just too high to manage. But I really enjoy working on sleep problems, so I always take cases when they come to me when I can. But I do think that's an important thing to keep in mind, just practically, if people are like, yeah, I really like doing sleep, I want to do this as a job. It is a hard thing to maintain as your only thing. But if you are looking to assess and treat sleep problems with existing clients, that is awesome. You should definitely do that. We need more people doing that, because I'm sure all of you have clients who have sleep problems. You probably all have friends who have sleep problems. Some of you have children of your own that have sleep problems. Probably a good portion of you in here have sleep problems of your own. If you are wanting to treat sleep problems in any of those people, please keep in mind the ethics code, particularly 1.06 and 3.06, which are here on the screen. It's really important to make sure that sleep is within your scope of competence before you take on any cases or before you start treating sleep problems in your own clients. It is a unique behavior problem. I put it in the same camp as feeding problems. So for most of us, I think most of us wouldn't touch severe feeding problems without explicit training, because that's kind of a unique problem that you have to really understand what's going on to treat it. Same goes with sleep. It's a unique thing. It's a little bit different than what we generally do as behavior analysts. So you have to have a good understanding of it before you jump in and start treating sleep problems. You can make them worse if you do it wrong. And the bigger issue that I find is I get a lot of clients that come to me and say, oh, well, my BCBA already had me do sleep treatment and it didn't work. And then when I asked them what they had them do, it was like not at all what I would have recommended. And then that's kind of eroded their trust in the process and eroded their trust in the fact that this actually can work. So be careful, be cautious. Don't just jump into it and go, I'm a behavior analyst and this is behavior, so I can treat it. If you want to become competent in treating sleep problems, which I hope you all do, because we need more people that can do it, first thing is do your research. Read all of the behavior analytics studies on sleep. There are not a ton of them. It's something you could do in a weekend, but there are enough of them to give you a good kind of basis of what the research is. There's a reference page coming up in a couple of slides. That's a good place to start. The Jin et al. 2014 article is also a really good place to start, and then go through the references in their paper. That'll give you a really good base of what the research looks like. I also highly recommend the book Why We Sleep by Matthew Walker. That'll give you a really good understanding of sleep from a biological or medical standpoint. But it's really science heavy. It's science heavy in that they talk about the science, but they explain it in regular people terms as much as possible. But it's really helpful to kind of understand how the biology works and how that plays into the behavioral issues. So just read as much behavioral sleep research as you can. Make sure that you are up to date on best practices. Know that there is research going on in our field. There is not a lot of it, but it's there. Read it. There's a lot of really good stuff going on. And then once you've done that, once you've kind of done your homework and read as much as you can, seek out opportunities to learn more from the experts in our field that are doing it. There are not many of us, but we are out there. And of course, the SATT group on Facebook is a really good place to start. That's run by I don't actually know who the primary, I don't know if it's Hillary that's running that or if somebody else is primarily in charge of that, but there's a lot of overlap between the people that are in the SBT group and the SATT group. So if you don't know what that is, on Facebook, look for Sleep Assessment and Treatment Tool. And there's a whole group of behavior analysts that are doing that. Did somebody just put it in there? Emily Ice is running that. Hillary, are you able, if you're able to link us to that in the group chat, or if anybody can drop the link in there, that would be helpful, I'm sure. But that's a really good place to talk about sleep, to ask questions. There are a couple of people who are experts on sleep in there. So seek out those people that already know what they're doing and have been doing this for a long time. Those are good people to learn from. Get continuing ed on sleep. I offer multiple continuing ed opportunities throughout the year. I do a 2-hour webinar with behavior development solutions several times a year. I'm probably going to have some more of those coming up in the fall. I also have a bunch of recorded CE opportunities that are available online that you can, I think most of them you have to purchase them, but you can get continuing ed credits for them. I have some with Study Notes ABA. They host a couple of those for me. I'll link you all to those if anybody wants to look at any of those recorded ones. I also offer several times a year when I have time, I offer an in-depth sleep course that is 8 continuing ed credits, and it's 4 hours live and then 4 hours of independent work. We just wrapped up one session. I do plan on offering another one of those if there's enough interest in September or October, and I usually try and poll people about what's the best time of the day. I'm playing with offering that so that you can do it live or recorded, because scheduling always ends up being a bit difficult. But bottom line, I offer a lot of continuing ed stuff on sleep. So that's there. There are some other people that are offering continuing ed as well on sleep. I think Emily Ice does offer some things. I know Nicole Shallow, who is also in that SATT group, she offers some stuff as well. I trained her, so I know she's doing some good work, and I trust that she knows what she's talking about. I have also seen a recent uptick in people offering continuing ed and training on different platforms online. Please be careful and vet your sources. It turns out this day and age in technology, anybody can call themselves an expert on anything, and anybody through a lot of these new sites that are popping up can offer continuing ed just by having a BCBA. They don't have to even have an ACE number because there's companies that will provide it. So sometimes content that is popping up online with continuing ed is not always the best place to learn from. Surprise, surprise, surprise. So I would just recommend, if you are getting any continuing ed on sleep that you have found online, to vet whoever is teaching it. Find out what their experience is, who they learned from, how long have they been doing it, what coursework have they taken on sleep, what research have they done, can they show you any data sets from clients. Anybody who is an expert on sleep should be able to give you information on all of those things, but do be careful. I have seen some stuff popping up recently where I know that the people that are offering things are not, in fact, experts in those things. So just beware of that. But do try to find as many opportunities as you can to learn so that you can become an expert before you start treating it, and you can at least be competent before you jump into it. And then the kind of final step in becoming competent in treating sleep problems is supervised practice or mentorship. And I think that's a really important part of becoming competent in treating sleep problems. It's one thing to read about how to do it or read the research or watch the CEUs, but actually putting that into practice is a whole nother beast. So figuring out, how do I translate what I've learned in a webinar or what I've learned from reading research into actual practice is a complicated thing. So I always recommend, if you can find somebody who has some expertise in treating sleep problems, to seek out mentorship from them. Ask if you can watch them on a case, or if you can talk through some of their cases with them. Have them show you their process for assessment. Have them show you their process for treatment. What does a treatment plan look like? How do you come up with a treatment plan? What things are important to be thinking about? And I think the best case scenario is watch an expert do a couple of cases and then have an expert work with you on one or two cases. Like if you have your own clients with sleep problems, have an expert be a co-consult on those cases so that you can work through assessment and treatment together. And then eventually you take cases of your own, but have an expert watch. Have them sit in on the assessment, have them review your treatment plan, and have them just double check that you are doing everything right. That's the best case scenario, I think, for becoming competent in treating sleep problems. And I think it's important that people take the right path to build their competence. Again, I kind of hit the jackpot in that I had Greg Hanley only a phone call away when I was first starting to assess and treat sleep problems. And he was very generous with his time as a professor and as an advisor, and helped me kind of refine my practice. And I'm always happy to supervise and happy to mentor people who are wanting to become competent in sleep practice. That said, I also will say there is a recent kind of trend in, I get probably a couple of inquiries a week from BCBAs or other clinicians saying, like, I want to learn how to treat sleep problems. Can you mentor me? And then asking, like, can you come and sit down on my case, or can you do this, or can you do that? But I don't have any funds from my organization or whatever to compensate you. You should be expecting that if you are going to work with an expert and have somebody supervise you or mentor you, much like we have paid arrangements with RBTs or anybody that we're supervising to get their BCBA, you should expect that there is going to be some cost associated with ongoing mentorship even though you have your BCBA. So if you're looking to become an expert or to build competency in some area and you are consulting with an expert to build that competence, you should expect that they are probably going to charge you for that, or they are going to want to work out some arrangement because they have spent a lot of time and money to get their expertise, and their time is often very valuable. So just expect that. I always feel bad when people come to me and they're looking for help in building sleep expertise, and then they are shocked when I say, this is what my rate is, that they thought that I would just come sit through 10 hours of training and be able to do it for free, which I wish I could, but I also have to make a living as well. So just kind of know that there's a lot of experts out there that are willing to share time and experience for free and do webinars for free and trainings like that. But if you really do want one-on-one mentorship from somebody that is an expert, then expect that there will be some kind of financial arrangement there as well. But yeah, so those are kind of my 3 steps to building competency. Do your research, seek out CEUs and learning opportunities, and then seek out mentorship. It's important. I want as many of you to learn as much as you can about sleep and to be interested in sleep and to help your clients, because I think it's somewhere we can make a big impact, and it's something that we're missing out on right now. I think we as behavior analysts are in a much better position to treat sleep problems than almost any other clinician. And most parents of kids with sleep problems go to their pediatrician, and pediatricians don't know what to do about sleep problems other than prescribe medication, because that's their job, right? Prescribe medication. So we are in a unique position to actually be able to make some good long-term changes for people with sleep problems. We just need more people that know how to do it. So learn more things, do more things, find out about sleep. One more code word. This is our last code word. If you are looking for CEUs, and the code word is DREAM, DREAM. Please write that down. If you are looking for CEUs, code word is DREAM. And now some very important information. So I mentioned I offer pretty regular webinars and CEU opportunities on sleep. I also do work on anxiety and functional analysis, and sometimes other random topics like dog training, ethics. I actually have a really cool ethics webinar coming up that I'm really excited about with behavior development solutions next month. And we're going to be talking about criticisms of ABA, which is a real big thing out there right now. If you didn't know, we've got a lot of enemies right now. And I'm going to be talking about what are people criticizing, how should we respond, what can we do, how do we make sure that we are doing the best for our clients. So that's coming up next month. And then I plan to offer an in-depth sleep series, I think in September or October. Dates aren't quite nailed down yet. But if you want to find out about upcoming opportunities and you want to kind of be in the know about what I have coming up, then you should get on my email list, which I am going to drop into, I'm going to drop into the chat a link for that. I would love it if people got on my email list. I promise I will not spam you. I only send out emails when I have a CEU thing coming up. There's no other promotional things that I'm doing. I'm a one-person company, so I don't have the time to be sending out a lot of emails. But if you want to know about upcoming CEUs, that's my email list right there. You can also scan this cool little QR code with your phone. It should work. You should be able to scan your computer screen. And that will bring you to my link tree, which has my email list on there. It also has my website. And it has my Facebook page and I think my email. I can't remember what else is on there, but it has all my important links. So you can scan that barcode and that'll bring you to all of my links. You can also find me on my website here, which is morebehaviorconsulting.com. And I have a Facebook page that, I'm going to be honest, I have not been keeping super updated lately, but you can follow that if you want. I do post whenever I have CEUs coming up. And I do post whenever I have new blogs coming out. But other than that, I haven't been as active on Facebook, but it's just more behavior consulting on Facebook. Again, you can find all that on the Linktree page. I do on my website, I just started a sleep blog that is aimed toward being readable by anyone. It's all behavioral in topic, but it's written so that anybody can understand it. So I am right now releasing one blog post a week, or trying my best to do that. I thought that was going to be an easy undertaking, and it's a lot of work to do that. But I do have stuff coming out every week, so you can subscribe to that on my webpage, or you can just see when they come out on my Facebook page if you're a Facebook user, which I assume you all are, because that's how you ended up here today. Also pay attention to that SATT group on Facebook. I think the link got dropped into the chat earlier. There's sometimes CEU opportunities in there. I try to remember to post in there whenever I have anything coming up as well. And then I mentioned earlier, I have recorded content on my website. So if you go to my site, there's a tab that says for professionals. And if you scroll down, there are links to a whole bunch of different recorded things that I've done. Some of them are webinars that you have to pay for if you want continuing ed credits. Some of them are podcast episodes. So there's a whole bunch of content on there that's for behavior analysts. And that is, I'll drop a link to that in the chat just in case that QR code isn't working for people. But you can find that right on my website. Where'd my chat button go? And if you happen to be watching the recording, I will, when we post the recording for this, we'll also include all of these links as well, but that QR code should work on the recording as well. And like I said before, I also offer mentoring. You can email me if that's something that you're interested in, and we can talk about how that works. I do it differently for different individuals depending on what they need and how much experience they have. And let's talk about CEUs really quickly. If you are wanting CEUs for today, there are 2 steps that you need to follow. The first is that you need to fill out a survey that will tell me who you are and what your BCBA number is. I am an ACE provider. And that survey is on Google Forms, and you should be able to scan this QR code and it will take you directly there. If you don't have a fancy QR code scanner, I will drop the link into the chat. Please only fill this out if you want continuing ed credits. If you want continuing ed, please fill this out as soon as you can. I'm traveling starting on Thursday, so I want to get those processed for people as soon as I can. But you'll need to first fill out that survey and then pay $15 via either PayPal or Venmo, and the info is on here. That info will also come up at the end of the survey in case you forget. You can also use my Linktree. It has links to my PayPal and my Venmo. So just fill out that survey, submit the $15, and then I will email you your certificate as soon as I can. And then I also have references. Now that we got through the important stuff, these are some references. These are good places to start if you're wanting to learn more about sleep. This Jen article in particular, if you then look at their references as well, that'll give you a really good starting point. And as promised, we've got a little bit of time for questions, and then there's my contact info as well in case you think of anything later. Anybody have questions, comments, anything that you want to ask? Feel free to pop them in the chat or just turn on your microphone and yell. I think we had one.
There's a few questions in the chat.
Sure. I can scroll back up through them. Oh, weird. Hold on. Okay. Okay, I see. How do you start with clients who are sleeping 2 to 4 hours a night on a regular basis? Do you find that by working through those first categories can help with this? Yeah, so with pretty much any sleep problem, I'm looking at those 4 main categories. So I always start with the sleep assessment and treatment tool as my main assessment. And that kind of focuses on those same 4 areas that we were just talking about. And from there, I design a comprehensive sleep treatment package. So I typically am working on all 4 of those areas at the same time. So all of my sleep treatment packages look at increasing the value of sleep, creating a bedtime routine, working on sleep dependencies, and working on decreasing interfering behavior. And if we focus on all 4 of those things at the same time, that typically will fix any sleep problem. Doesn't matter what the topography is. If we can tackle all 4 of those things, we're going to be good to go. The second part of that question was, can you speak to sleep medications a bit and their impact on treatment? Yeah, that's probably the most common question that I get asked is about medication, specifically melatonin. That's all the rage right now. The unfortunate truth of sleep medication is that it's like if you work in a job where you have to bend a lot and you are bending improperly and you keep throwing your back out, and then you take Tylenol when your back hurts, it might help your back feel better temporarily, but it's not going to fix the problem. The problem is going to keep coming back. Medication for sleep problems is Tylenol for a backache. It's going to help temporarily, sometimes not even that in some cases, but it's not going to fix the underlying causes. Sleep problems, generally speaking, are not medical problems. Medication can fix the symptoms. It can make you tired. We have a lot of medications that do make people tired, but it doesn't fix the problem. Unfortunately, if people go to their primary care doctor complaining of sleep problems, the first line of treatment is medication, because that's what doctors do. That's their job, is prescribe medication to fix health problems. But it often creates more long-term problems for people. And melatonin is included in that. I don't want to go too far off on a melatonin tangent, but I will say I have a blog post that I did a week or 2 ago on melatonin and why it's problematic. So if that's something that you're interested in, shameless plug for my blog, check that out. But melatonin is not a good treatment for sleep problems either. There is no evidence that anyone's sleep problems, aside from people who do shift work or people who are jet lagged, there is no evidence that it's a melatonin problem. And by taking synthetic melatonin, you are likely going to make the problem worse. So sleep medications often create more problems in the middle of the night. They help people fall asleep quickly, but they become an unhealthy sleep dependency where your body needs to be in that medication-induced state to be able to fall asleep. And then when you wake up and that medication has started to wear off, you are basically screwed. You're not going to be able to fall back to sleep. I often tell parents it's similar to people who have a drink or 2 before bed to go to sleep, a little nightcap. If you're somebody that has a drink or 2 before bed and that helps you fall asleep, you might notice that you would happen to wake up after about 4 hours, and it sometimes can be hard to fall back to sleep because you have taught your body that alcohol is a sleep dependency, that being in that state is what makes you fall asleep. And then as soon as you're no longer in that state, it's hard to fall asleep again. So I'm a big advocate of not being on sleep medication because it is not a good long-term solution. Sometimes a temporary solution, like if you're recovering from jet lag or if you're doing shift work. I've got a friend who was doing she was a flight attendant that did flights from London to Sydney. And she had one flight a week, and she would then be in either one of those places for like 3 days. So she had all kinds of sleep problems because she was doing these like huge time shifts once a week. And she had to be on melatonin because she was doing very unnatural things to her body. But other than a situation like that, I don't generally recommend it. I think I saw a couple other ones. If anybody put a question in earlier, feel free to just turn your mic on and shout it out to me, because I know there's been a lot of things that came through the chat. We've got one on restless leg syndrome. If someone is dealing with restless leg syndrome, would you address that as a competing activity, or would you deal with it as a medical issue? That's a good question. There's actually a lot of debate about what restless leg syndrome is and what causes it and how to fix it, and if it's a medical problem or if it's a behavior problem. I don't have any good answers for that. What I will say is, when I have any indication that somebody may have a medical sleep problem, which for me, typically the things I'm looking for are seizure disorders, sleep apnea or snoring, and sometimes restless leg syndrome. Those tend to be the big three that I'm looking for that are actual medical problems. If any of those are a possibility, I do tell them you need to talk to your primary care doctor first, and you should have a sleep study done before we get into behavioral sleep treatment. If people are clear for those issues, they don't have seizures, there's no suspicion of sleep apnea, they don't snore, nobody's ever noticed anything weird about their breathing at night, it is not worth going through a sleep study, in my opinion. They are very hard, especially on kids. Most kids don't sleep at all during a sleep study because they've got all these wires stuck to their head, and they're in an unfamiliar place with machines beeping and things going on and wires coming off of them. They don't usually give you a ton of useful information, but with restless leg syndrome, iron is sometimes a good treatment for that. So getting an iron test and finding out if your iron levels are normal, that's sometimes an easy fix for that. We don't really know why that is a cause of restless leg syndrome, but it is sometimes. So that's something that if we're dealing with an adult that thinks they have restless leg syndrome, that's worth getting a sleep study to rule that out, and find out what might be going on medically first before moving on to behavioral treatment. Do I recommend clients removing sleep medication before addressing resetting sleep behavior? That's a good question. It depends on the case. Unfortunately, a lot of my clients who are neurodivergent are on behavioral medications that affect sleep, and I can't tell them to stop those medications. So I always make sure to ask what medications people are on. I make sure that I know about medications and how they impact sleep. And if people are prescribed medications for sleep, then I talk with the family about, do we want to try and get rid of this before we start sleep treatment? Or do we think we can successfully do behavioral sleep treatment and then wean off the medication? But it's really kind of an individual decision. If I think the medication is currently causing more problems than it's fixing, we will often wean off them before we start sleep treatment. If I think we can make good gains with sleep treatment without taking the med out first, then we'll do that. Usually if people are on melatonin, we keep it in until we've started sleep treatment, and then we wean off of it. But it really depends on the medication and the person. What else? What did I miss? Danielle?
I did have a question about the types of direct hours you provide. Like, is it consultations? Do they want you there at bedtime, the families that you work with?
Oh, that's a good question. No, nobody ever wants you in their house at bedtime. I can definitively say I have never met a family that was like, yes, please come over at bedtime. I am lucky in that I live on the West Coast and I am a night owl myself. So I tend to keep later work hours anyway. So that works out well for me. I used to do in-person sleep treatment. So my process used to, when I first started, I would first sit down with the family and do the sleep assessment and treatment tool. So that's an interview-based assessment. And then I would come at bedtime and watch bedtime one night until the child fell asleep. Then I would write up a sleep treatment and I would meet with the parents to go over it. And then I would come over the first 1 or 2 nights of sleep treatment and help them enact the treatment. And I found 2 things. One, it was a huge pain in the butt for everybody involved to have me coming over to their house late at night at bedtime. 2, it was leading to a lot of excess billable hours that we didn't need. And it just wasn't efficient and it wasn't effective. Part of me kind of changing my methods was just based on me gaining more experience and becoming more effective and efficient as a clinician. So I wouldn't necessarily say that everybody can do sleep treatment the way that I do it. I think when you're just getting started, you might need that time to be able to actually see what's going on. But right now, what I do all of my cases over telehealth, which is nice because I can take cases from anywhere. And my process basically looks like we meet for 2 hours. We schedule a 2-hour meeting to do the sleep assessment and treatment tool. I use a modified version of that I have modified myself to kind of streamline what questions I need to ask and what information I need. Takes maximum of 2 hours, and then I write up an individualized treatment plan. And I take about a week to do that while I have the family collect baseline data. So we meet, we do the assessment, we have about a week of time that they're taking data. I'm busy writing up a treatment plan, and then I send a draft of the treatment plan to the family. They have some time to review it and see what they think about it. They make some notes, and then we meet for 2 hours. We go over the treatment plan. We make changes if we need to. We make sure that the family's on board with everything, that they understand everything. If there's anything that they don't feel good about, or they're not really excited about, or they're feeling a little apprehensive about doing, we change it. So my goal is in the treatment meeting that the parents leave that meeting with a document in hand that they are like, yes, we are ready to do this. We're excited about it. We feel confident that we can do it. We got this. If there's any wavering about any of it, we've got more work to do to figure out a plan that's going to work for them. So I want them leaving that meeting feeling like they have something that they can do. They understand how to do it. They've had a chance to ask questions. We've done behavioral skills training so that they're ready and they know what to do. And then when they're ready to start the treatment plan, we talk about what it means to be ready and how do we decide a good time to start. When they're ready to start, I'm basically on standby where they can call me or text me if they need the first couple of nights. I always set a limit of for me, it's usually 11 p.m. is I'm not taking phone calls or work stuff anymore. But I'm working late anyway. So the first couple nights I'm kind of on standby. If they need anything, they can call or text and I'll answer questions. And then I check in the morning to make sure everything went okay. They're still collecting data. I'm keeping a close eye on that. And most families by night 2 or 3, they're good to go. They've got the routine down, things are going smoothly and they're off and running. I keep checking in with them for a week or 2 and then we're pretty much done. So it's a pretty efficient process for what I do. Danielle, did you have more to add to that?
No, thank you. That sounds really great.
Awesome. I saw the little hand thing, but I didn't know if that was just still up from before. Let's see. Kathy asked, do you do behavior skills training with the parent or the kids? So often, I never meet the kids. If I have a sleep client that is a child, I'm meeting with the parents the whole time. Sometimes I'll have them bring the kid in on the Zoom call for a second, just so that I can kind of put a face to the name, but I often don't meet the kids. When we do behavior skills training, need them to role play. I often kind of want the element of surprise in the beginning of our sleep treatment, so we don't often clue the kids in on exactly what's going on. So we don't need them to be a part of the role play now. What else? Any other questions? I know we're over our prescribed time. I'm happy to stay on for a couple more minutes if people have any other questions though. Going once. I'm not sure if I missed anything in the chat, but if I did, feel free to yell at me.
Thank you so much.
Thank you all for being here, and please sign up for my email list if you want to find out about any upcoming CEUs. Feel free to reach out via Facebook, via email. I will be out of the office for the next almost 2 weeks, so don't be alarmed if you email me and you get an automatic reply saying I'm out of the office until the end of the month, because I'm getting my dog trainer certification, but I will still be checking emails and responding. I'll just have that up so people know not to expect a very fast response, but feel free to reach out. Thank you all for coming and hanging out. I love talking about sleep. Happy to talk about sleep anytime. All right. Thank you, everybody. Have a good rest of your night.